You got to be patient and just let it do its job. Wikipedia explains that a rosette is a round stylized flower design. These can be useful embellishments as shown here on various projects, including bowls and boxes and platters and bottle stoppers and all handles and any number of other projects. In this video I'm going to demonstrate the details of how you create a rosette design using different texturing tools, as well as show you how that I use them on wood turning to add interesting detail. Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. If you want to learn more about wood turning tips, tricks, techniques, and projects, you might be interested in subscribing and ringing the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Texturing starts with wood choices. Your mileage may vary, but for me I prefer to use rather plain ordinary wood with unordinary plain designs such as dogwood, mahogany, holly, cherry, maple, even fig, and of course one of my favorites, Bradford pear. I don't like to use it on wood where the texture is going to fight with the background of the grain or spalting or burl in a project. It'd be a little bit like, you know, trying to camouflage one aspect of your wood turning. So I would avoid using highly spalted wood. I would avoid using wood such as wood infected by the ambrosia beetle. It leaves these beautiful streaks. I wouldn't want to use wood that has highly figured grain such as ash or tiger wood, and again I would avoid burls. You can use any number of exotic woods, but I would want to tend to use woods that have a fairly plain look to them, whether it's you know, whatever it happens to be. It could be lignum vitae, it could be blackwood, it could be any number of them that just where the grain is not a big issue. So here's some examples of how I would typically use a rosette on some of my wood turnings. I tend to put a rosette style texturing on the bottom of handles of my awls. It's also suitable for the top of a bottle stopper. You might want to put it on the bottom of a box. It tends to work well in grain or side grain if you're using the right technique. Here's a couple of examples where I use a rosette on a cross grain small ring bowl, whether I might put it on the inside or I might put it on the outside. Here are the typical tools I would be using for doing that rosette. It could be a Sorby micro spiraling texturing tool, or it might be a large Sorby spiraling or texturing tool. I tend to prefer for these small items to use the less expensive micro because it's easier to handle and that's all you really need. But the medium wheel on the micro and the 4mm wheel on the large Sorby system will give you exactly the same type of pattern. Another alternative is the crown spiraling and texturing tool. I don't like this as much. The cutters are not completely interchangeable with the Sorby. They're a little bit smaller. The Sorby will not fit on the crown. I don't much care for the tool rest or saddle that the crown uses compared to the Sorby. I like the Sorby because you can adjust the screws and put it at a tension where you can easily just turn this left and right and hold it in position without having to mess with it every time. The crown uses a couple of set screws, and once you set them they're pretty much in place until you use the Allen wrench to change them, so it's not as convenient. Additionally, I don't like the way the cutters are cut on the crown. I think the ones on the Sorby seem to be cut sharper. I'm not throwing crown under the bus and saying they make bad tools. I'm just saying I prefer their there's the Sorby spiraling texturing tool, primarily because of the cutters, as shown in this picture with the crown cutters on the right and the Sorby cutters on the left. It's just not machined the same way. When you buy any of these spiraling and texturing systems, be aware that they come in different configurations of how many cutters. So just be aware of what you're buying if you're going to buy a brand new one. Some come with three or four cutters. Some of them come with a texturing wheel as opposed to the spiraling wheel. The spiraling wheel is the one that's flat across. The texturing wheel is one where it's got a bevel on both sides. You can make the texturing wheel work. I just find that the spiraling wheel tends to do better on these rosettes for me. Other texturing tools could be the what's commercially known as the Henry Taylor decorating elf, but I tend to call it my Dremel, rotating Dremel Burr tool. I've got plans on my website for how you make these, and you use a Dremel Burr for the texture, and I'll show you how to do that. And another tool I tend to use are Wagner style tools. These are from Ron Brown's Best, but they're also available from Wagner tools are also available from Craft Supply USA. Okay, let's get down to it. First thing we've got to do is prepare the wood surface. This is going to be in grain on a piece of Bradford pear. I'm using a small 3/8 inch bowl gouge, traditional grind. You could use a skew, you could use a scraper, whatever it takes to get the surface clean. Anytime you're doing texturing, you want to prepare you want to sand the surface to the final finish. I'm just going to hit it with a little 180 for this demo, but you want to probably take it up to 400 because you can't go back and sand it. All right, so now we're going to set the tool rest far enough apart. We're going to start with the Sorby micro spiraling system. I've got this set at an angle. Let me demonstrate here. I've got it set at about a 15-degree twist to the right, or at about 12:30 on the clock. If it was going straight up and down, it would be noon. Edge on the spiraling wheel. I'm going to come in just a little bit off center, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So we're looking at leaving somewhere around 1/4 of an inch in the middle. And speed-wise, this has got a bronze bushing. It doesn't have a bearing in it, and you can tear it up, wear it out. A drop or two of machine oil, maybe once a day if you're using this, is not a bad idea to help lubricate it. But it spins freely. So we're going to set the rest down. A lot of people don't use this tool rest, or what I call a saddle, but it helps keep this oriented in the same orientation if you want to come back out and go back in and pick up the cut. So speed-wise, you want to keep this down to somewhere maybe 400 to 500. Slow it down a little bit here. And we're going to angle this at, perhaps 45 degrees. We're going to touch on that penciled line with that sharp edge. And just hold it. And then I'm slowly going to twist it almost parallel or perpendicular. Let's see what we got. And we've got a spiral. That's not exactly what I was looking for, but we're going to go through several iterations of this. So again, anytime you use texturing, you want to frame this, and although this doesn't look especially great, look how much better it will be when we just use a point tool or the corner of a skew to just border it, frame it a little bit with a little V-groove here and a bead there. Here a bead, there a bead, everywhere. And all of a sudden, now you got something that looks considerably more attractive. Also, anytime you're texturing, you want to come back in with something to get rid of any frizzies that might show up. You might use a brass detail brush. I tend to prefer this green abrasive, non-woven abrasive pad.
You can also use an inexpensive chip brush where you cut the bristles back, and that'll get rid of, or if you got a lot of shavings on the floor, you can pick up a handful of shavings and just burnish it, and that'll work as well. All right, now let's try something a little bit different. And we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to bring this point in, these teeth, we're going to start it a little bit closer towards center. And let me mention, you do not want to use abrasive paste on this surface when you're going to use any texturing cutter, because the abrasive is going to have a tendency to dull your tools. Again, slow this down. We're going to come right in on center. Again, this is turned about 15 degrees. This is turned at about, angled at about 45 degrees. And we're going to bring it in real close to center. And we're not going to move the handle at all. And you can see now we've got a little different look. And again, we're not sure exactly what that looks like until we come back in with a point tool and kind of clean it up a little bit. And now we've got a little decoration that doesn't look too bad. And now let's clean this off and do it one more time. Now we're using the medium cutter. I found that the fine cutter I just have not had real good success with. This time we're going to come in on center again, but this time I'm going to use the coarse side of the wheel and come right in on center. Now we're going to spin it in. And let's see what we come up with. And now we've got a little bit of a flower type decoration with a little bit of whirl. And again, we're going to punch it up by framing it. Got a little sloppy with my V-groove there. Okay, so yeah, so that wouldn't be a bad feature at all on the top of a box, bottom of a box. Now, I'm doing this on end grain. Let's try it on cross grain like we would do it on a small bowl. So now I've got a small bowl blank of a cherry mounted, and I'm going to use a negative rake scraper to just clean up the surface just a little bit. And that's good. I'm going to back off the tool rest just a little bit. We've got to have room for that saddle to hold on to it and be far enough away that the wheel is not going to touch anything. All right, we're going to come off of that center just a little bit. Again, I'm going to mark it with a pencil just so I've got something to visually locate on. I want to get just inside there. Anchor the tool, hold it down with your left hand against on the tool rest. We're going to come in at a this time we're going to come straight in at just a very slight angle, not straight in. Let's see what we come up with. And we've got a nice tiny little bud flower there in the middle and a little swirl out to the side. So again, always going to come in there and frame it. Drop the handle, roll the bead. Okay. And we've got a nice little decorative design. And you could have that on the bottom of a bowl, or if food wasn't a food bowl, you could put it on the inside of a bowl, as I've done on my ring bowls, as I've shown earlier. Okay, now I've reversed the bowl. We're going to use a larger tool. We're going to use the Sorby large spiraling and texturing system with a 4mm cutter and the tool rest on it. Back off the tool rest a little bit. Now, this has got a little hole from drilling with a Forstner bit. We're going to ignore that and texture next to it. And we're going to drop it down. Now, one of the differences between this and the micro system is this has a bearing on it. And you can go a little bit faster, but on something like this, you probably still want to keep it around the 400, 500 for that fine motor control so it doesn't jump out of the cut on you. And this time I'm using the bevel edge rather than the flat edge. Slow the speed down. Okay. Come in there. Again, my left hand bracing it down on the tool rest. And I'm bringing it in toward 90 degrees. And let's see what we come up with. And now you can see we've got a little different pattern, and we could have gotten the same pattern if we brought the other tool around almost 90 degrees. And again, we want to border it. To emphasize the decoration. And that's actually a very nice a flower rosette pattern we got on this. All right, back to Bradford Pear and a Sorby micro cutter, and I'm using their fine cutting wheel with the bevel to the left, again tilted at about a 15-degree angle. And let's give that a shot. Slow the speed down. Come in at a slight angle. And then stop and check. And I've got it spinning around, a little swirl. So let's come in and bring it in. Bring that handle around. And we get a little different look with it overlapping cut. Let's bring it around a little bit more. Bring it full 90 degrees on. And we got a little bit more of showing of the petals. And again, not a bad rosette look. I've generally had better luck with the medium cutter than I have with the fine cutter. This is with the fine cutter. Now we're going to use the texturing tool instead of the spiraling tool, and we're going to use it the same way at about a 15-degree angle, rotated 15 degrees and coming in at 45 degrees. Actually, in this case, I think I'm going to come on. I'm not going to have it angled 45. I'm going to have it angled a little closer to straight on. And then bring it around. And I get a nice little four leaf texture there. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but again, when you border it, you can improve it quite a bit. And this is a 4-petal. And now we're going to use the Wagner tool, which is a knurling tool. We're going to use the 3/8 inch across and 12 teeth per inch, which is a little kind of coarse. Again, we're going to come in at a approximately 15-degree angle and engage the corner of the cutter before we start bringing it around. Speed about 350. Holding it down with the left hand to keep it from jumping out. Slowly bringing it around. And we've got a nice little pattern there. And it's already engaged a little line from the corner of the tool rubbing, but we can come in there and add a little bit more to the middle. and again punch it up a little bit. And let's come back a little bit and let's see what happens if we do it again on the inside that inner circle. Again, 350. Engage with the left corner. And we're not going to move it this time. We're just going to hold it in place. And we've got a series of little dots. And it came back and looked like it might have changed the outside texture a little bit. But again, not a bad effect. Now we're going to switch to a 16 TPI with a 1/4 inch wheel. Again, coming in there and engaging it at a slight. In this instance, I'm going to rotate it. Before I had it flat, so now we're going to rotate it up 15 degrees and engage the corner, similar to the way we did the spiraling wheels. But we're really going to have to hold on to it to control it. And it's got a lot of little micro turns to it. That doesn't look bad. Again, let's punch it up a little bit. And it's just amazing what that framing will do for that. So that's not a bad looking little rosette. So now let's try a little different technique with it. Take this off. Slow down. This time we're going to come in there, we're going to rotate it a little bit here, and then we're going to, let's see, actually we're going to engage the corner, and then we're going to rotate it to the, rotate it back to the left. And again, we got a slightly different look, although it looks like some series of dots. It doesn't look especially great. That technique could use a little work. But it shows some promise. So for my next rosette sample, I'm going to use my Dremel Burr tool with the round cutter. This is 5/16 of an inch, and I need to cut a cove that's 5/8 of an inch, so it'll account for room for that burr to ride in it. So let me just kind of mark about where that is here. Double check that. Needs to be a little bit bigger than that, and that's fine. So to cut this little cove for it to ride in, I'm going to use this cove tool, which is a 1/4 inch rod cut at a 45-degree angle. It's just a scraper. You just hone it to sharpen it. This is a piece of exotic, and this would be a good rosette to put on the top of a bottle stopper like this blank. Raise the tool rest just a little bit. So now I have a tiny little cove for this tool to rotate in, and again we're going to do the final finishing, although that's probably pretty close to where it needs to be. So I'm going to sand this to 400. Now when using this tool, you want to keep the speed down to somewhere around 400, 600. And we're going to drop the tool rest so you can have this at somewhat of an angle like this. I'm going to slow it down. It's on about 550. And I'm just going to engage it. I'm using my left hand to kind of put additional pressure on it. You got to be patient. Just let it do its job. And there we go. Now, of course, anytime we do this, we're going to frame it by, we talked about it before, V-grooves, beads, elevate it. I'm just going to use this point tool, get speed up a little bit, and just make a tiny little bead. And this little point tool, which is a 1/4 inch rod with 3 sides on it as a scraper, works great for this. I've got a video on making and using this tool, and as I mentioned before, I may have mentioned before, I've got plans on my website for this tool. And there you go. Now, if I'd made it a little bit larger, actually, I've got a little bit of area in the middle that I probably should highlight by coming in here with this point tool with a tiny little bead. And that makes it pop a little bit better. You can always kick the level up a little bit by using some coloring like this gilt cream. And there we go. Okay, I hope this video was useful to you. If it was, give it a thumbs up to make it easier for other viewers to find this video. I'd appreciate if you leave a comment on the one thing you got out of it. If you enjoyed this one, you might want to check out the link I've got here on a earlier video I did, more comprehensive on comparing the different texturing tools. And remember, y'all stay safe. Come on back, you hear?